And good evening and welcome to the Main Break Show, half-time of a pretty torrid match, Crows versus the Hawks. Not really a convincing first half by the Adelaide Crows, but we do find ourselves up 9 goals for 58 to Adelaide's 6 goals for 40 to the Hawks. Don't forget, if you're listening to us on the Spreaker app or via the webpage, you can chat with us live during this little 15-minute cast, and I'll do my best to make it as interesting as possible. Let's go through some head-to-head stats. The disposal's pretty even, 230 to 210. We're kicking more than handballing, 125 to 105. The Hawks are even, 105 apiece. 16 and 9 free kicks in our favour, and yet there's one particular umpire that just seems to not want to give us frees or something. Demar gets, particularly in the first quarter in our forward line. Wow. We're winning the clearances, 22 to 16, but our centre clearances are down, and they're better than they were, 6-7 at half-time. We were 2-5 at one stage in the first quarter, and that's basically where Hawthorn were getting their goals in the first quarter from centre clearances. Around the ground stoppages, we're comfortably in front, although we don't seem to be taking advantage of that. 16 to 9 around the stoppages. 33 inside 50s to 18, and we'll get back to that particular stat amongst a couple of others. We're only taking 2 marks inside 50, which is a direct correlation of some wasteful forward 50 entries. We're leading the contested possession count. Hawthorn probably don't mind that as long as they're around the park on that stat. They're getting us more on the outside with the second or third disposal. 35 tackles to 26 by Adelaide, which is a good stat. Source 26 to 18 hit-outs, but I don't think he's being very effective in that particular department. So we need to see a little bit of an improvement in general in our centre square work. Our centre square work has been absolutely horrible. Our setups seem to be all over the place, and particularly in the first quarter, although we did seem to tidy it up a bit in the second quarter, but in the first quarter our stoppage setups and our centre square setups seem to be bloody horrendous, really. Anyway, some individual stats, and we had leading our disposal count is the usual suspect, Matty Crouch. He's had 20 touches, 8 kicks, 12 handballs. Not a great amount of metres gained from Matty. Could be better in that department, but he just knocks up getting the ball. He's actually only positive 5 metres gained, Matty Crouch, and that's obviously the big knock on Matt, but he is distributing the ball quite well and getting in chains, so can't knock him for that. We have Rory Atkins on 18 disposals, 15 and 3, but Rory Atkins has forgotten apparently how to kick the ball because his disposal efficiency has been absolutely horrendous. And I'll just bring that up while I'm struggling here with my internet connection. But 15 and 3, 5 marks for Rory, a couple of inside 50s. But as I said, just turning the ball over first quarter and second quarter, he's been absolutely horrendous in that regard. Atkins going at 61% disposal efficiency, and at one stage I think it was around about 17% disposal efficiency. Actually unheard of from Atkins, but nevertheless, Tommy Lynch is working hard as usual up and down that flank. He's got 15 disposals, 9 and 6. Still sometimes tries to do too much with the ball and doesn't play the percentages, but he's working particularly hard to link up, as is Tex actually, leading up the ground as well, getting a fair bit of it up high. Lynchy's taken 3 marks, kicked a goal, laid a tackle, 3 inside 50s as well. And you can see that Hawthorn are going to have to shut Tommy Lynch down a little bit to stop our forward 50 entries. Brad Crouch is working his way into the game. Again, a very lopsided disposal count. 4 kicks, 11 handballs, 1 goal, 3 tackles, 1 inside 50 from Crouchy. 10 contested possessions, though, is leading our contested possession count, which is good, and going at 80% disposal efficiency. So a couple of clangers, but 6 clearances as well, leading our clearances. So worked his way into the game nicely, Brad Crouch, I thought, in that second quarter. Hugh Greenwood, particularly in the first, 7 kicks, 6 handballs for 13 disposals up to half-time, but his first quarter was fantastic. 2 marks, 1 goal, 5 tackles, if you don't mind, leading the tackle count once again. 3 inside 50s for Hugh. He's also had 9 contested possessions and 4 clearances. So, pardon me, for the new kid on the block, he's really showing his worth in the team. Leady's not going too bad. Down back, 13 touches. Josh Jenkins, I thought, has competed well. 12 disposals, 3 marks and a couple of goals. Also 6 hit-outs. Not going too bad, Jenkins. Also kicking the ball 83.3%. I think from mine, where we're falling down is in 2 key areas. As I mentioned before, our setup and our efficiency around the contest is being really tested. Whilst we're leading the contested possession count and we're winning the stoppage clearance number, despite being a couple down in the centre clearance number, Hawthorn are just getting us on that second or third disposal. They're quite happy to have a couple sitting a few metres off the main contest, and then they're just picking us off. And it's happened time and again, and particularly in that first quarter. Most of Hawthorn's goals came from that second disposal turnover that, whether it was a hat kick forward or whether it was an errant handball out of congestion, we certainly don't look methodical at all coming out of stoppages. And also I think it's the other area that I'm just a bit speechless actually, is how disorganised we look, particularly down back. Our defensive action down back, particularly when the ball's coming in high, has been horrendous. Their first 2 goals came from lead up straight up the middle of the ground, as a consequence of their squaring their ball across the middle of the ground and then just hitting up a forward leading up with no cover whatsoever from our back 6 or our midfielders dropping back. I just felt like we looked particularly disorganised. We had a couple of occasions where we had blokes contesting against each other in the air without any talk. The one that comes to mind is Kelly and Hardigan, which resulted in a shot on goal for Hawthorn. And overall, we just don't look particularly composed. Not only that, we're fumbly with the ball, we're dropping marks, we're missing tackles. And I just felt like whether it's the bye and we're just, a touch off the pace, coming back off the bye, but we just don't look particularly sharp at the moment. And it's an area of the game that if we allow Hawthorn too many opportunities on the turnover, that's where they're going to beat us. I mean, we've had far more inside 50s than they have. We've had far more of the ball in general than they have. They certainly have had more uncontested possession because they're playing their usual chip around style. But most of our problems come when we run forward of the ball and then turn it over. And Hawthorn will get you every time with efficient kicking. Whilst our disposal efficiency has come up to 80.9%, at one stage it was around about 60%. And it wasn't until probably about the last 10 minutes of the second quarter there that we just started to look as if we were gaining some sort of ascendancy. But I'd like to see the marks inside 50 count lift, because I think our own forward 50 entries have been particularly haphazard and not very direct. Again, we've got a team that is playing one back, particularly at centre clearances. You'll notice that there's been a few times where we've won a centre clearance and we've kicked the ball forward and it's been marked by their spare defender. And it's a tactic that is consistently used against Adelaide, because we're one of the teams that will quite happily kick out of a centre clearance contest, and we just never man up. And I think if you're going to allow a team like Hawthorn to outnumber you up forward, particularly at the centre bounce, you have to have your forwards positioned so that they're able to get in front of that particular player. We just don't seem to be able to cotton on to that particular tactic, and as a consequence, we work hard for a centre clearance breakaway, and it just comes rebounding back. So it's something that is consistently a problem for us, and it doesn't look like it's been solved tactically or on the ground by the coaching and playing staff. That said, Hawthorn still have a quality group of players, and they're certainly playing the style of game that we've come to expect from them. They're quite happy to pick us up on turnovers. They apply pressure, and then they're precise by foot when they've got the ball. They've made the most of their opportunities. So they've only had 18 inside 50s for their 6 goals for. So they've scored from 10 of 18 inside 50s, whereas we've scored from 13 from 33 inside 50s. So that's and it's interesting because our disposals per scoring shot is far less than Hawthorn's, 17.5 versus 21, but their efficiency inside 50s is 1.8 and ours is 2.5. So from that point of view, you can see exactly what Hawthorn's doing. They'll chip around, they'll gain position, they'll spread the defence, and they'll wait for an opportunity to go forward. And then once they see that opening, that separation, they're able to be quite efficient when they go in there, and they're scoring 50% of the time to our 36. So what we need to see is a little bit more efficiency going forward. I'd like to see our forwards actually play a little bit higher and perhaps have Jenkins one out at the back of the contest. We haven't really exposed their lack of key position defender weakness. They're holding Betts quite well. They're also parking a second onto Betts or in front of Betts quite often. So that's limiting his output. I'd like to see Jenkins play deeper rather than Eddie and really expose them for a lack of height. I'd also like to see our defenders actually start to coordinate themselves because a lot of the goals that Hawthorn have kicked have been because of blunders by our back six, and that's been more of a communication issue or a composure issue rather than any sort of spectacular play by the Hawthorn team. A couple of players are down. Rory Sloane again is struggling with the tag. He's had 5 and 5 for 10 disposals, laid the 5 tackles, had a couple of inside 50s. But overall, Rory's output again is a little bit down. As a consequence of some pretty heavy tagging going on. Miller has sort of flashed in and out of the game. John O'Beach has been pretty non-existent this game. Fluffed a mark, looked a little bit flustered when going for that mark in the middle of the ground. Andy Otten similarly has been pretty much unsighted, and I really question the selection of Andy Otten. I don't quite understand what his role is in this particular team. He seems to be playing all over the ground, and I just don't like it personally. Richie Douglas has been okay, 10 posies without being spectacular. Luke Brown similarly had the 9 posies without being spectacular. Brodie Smith appears to be struggling to break free. Only the 9 posies and only the 1 inside 50 from Brodie. We need Brodie to be giving us a little bit more in that regard. No contested possessions from Brodie Smith either, which is a bit of a concern off half-back. And he's had the 3 rebound 50s, but hasn't really shown what he can do. As is pointed out in the chat, Ricky Henderson is the leading possession winner for Hawthorn with 20 touches and is playing a good role. He's an outside distributor, and that's how they're playing him. He's 17 uncontested possessions, but he's going at 100% disposal efficiency, Ricky Henderson, in his 100th game. It shows when you use a player, play into his strengths, then he's going to give you value for that. Tommy Mitchell has had 19, although I felt that he's been relatively well held. He hasn't really hurt us terribly much. Sean Burgoyne has been busy with 13 touches, Birchall as well with 15. Luke Hodge needs to quit playing footy because all he can do now is scrag. He's actually doing himself a disservice still being out there. He's not the player that we know Luke Hodge to be, and he's resorting now to holding and scragging and sucker punching, and it's a shame because I rate Hodge very highly, despite some of his tactics at times, but it seems that's all he's got left now. They're not particularly. There's no stats there that really stand out as hurting us in the Hawthorn team. I think it's really a matter of us tightening up, polishing up our skills, getting our first takes going, getting our organisation going in defence, and being cleaner with the ball coming into forward 50. Anyway, I will leave it there. We're about to start. So thanks very much for joining us, and we will see you on Sunday evening for the weekend wrap show, hopefully talking about a Crows win. Thanks guys on the chat for joining us, and we'll catch you later. Go Crows.